Are you dead tired of retrospectives where it's all talk and no action? Well, then you're gonna love this episode about work retrospectives. Today's guest speaker is Yves Hanoulle. He's an old friend of mine and a great Agile coach. His superpowers are being a creative collaboration agent and an Agile community instigator. Yves is also a super productive author. He has written, translated, and helped out to write tons of books. They are all great, but I would like to especially recommend Tips from the Agile Trenches, to which I was invited to contribute with a chapter. Before we start, I also want to say thank you to my amazing patrons. If you want to, consider becoming a patron yourself and join our community. But now, without further ado, Yves, take it away.
Okay, Jimmy, thank you. Like I said, or like you said, we're going to talk about retrospectives and more specifically work retrospective. And before I want to jump into that special kind of thing, I want to talk about what is a retrospective. So, Jimmy, when you hear the word retrospective, what comes to your mind?
For me, it's a team workshop where the team explores what can we do or to improve our ways of working and our process and leave the room with a few actionables and new agreements.
Yeah, I kind of like that. And I learned retrospectives from this book by Esther and Diana, Agile Retrospectives. Now, these days there is a ton of books, but that was the first, or at least the first one about Agile retrospectives. There was one before about project retrospectives, but this one was really the first, and it talks a lot of different things, not just exercises, but also about the different steps that you want to take. And so one of the things, let's go to the definition, how Esther and Diana are talking it. So I'm going to read that little text from the preface, the answer to what's a retrospective. They say, it's a special meeting where the team gathers after completing an increment of work to inspect and adapt their methods and teamwork. And that's a little bit like what you talked about. And then there's a bunch of other texts, and then they continue. Retrospectives focus not only on the development process, but on the team and the team issues. And I want to go a little bit deeper on that team issue part, because what does it mean, a team issue? And for me, team issues are, well, I see three definitions. First one is issues with the team. This is typical, something a manager tells you, or somebody else that is not in the team. Oh, I have some issues with the team. That's not the kind of thing I think that are talking about that Diana and Esther are talking about in the book. The second different way that I would define team issues are issues in the team. And that is the team dynamics and all these kind of things. And I think this is really what Esther and Diana are talking about. But I also see a third definition, and that third definition is issues the team has. And these are the typical kind of impediments and other kind of things. And that is really where I want to focus on. And I know that it's not fully, or I think it's not fully the definition that that Esther and Diana had when they created the book and they thought about Agile retrospective. But I noticed that sometimes that is needed also. So I want to talk a little bit about a first situation where I was working with a team, and I want to talk a little bit about that situation. So first of all, it was a large team, and it was creating a kind of framework that was replacing multiple websites. Now, this is a large company, and they had multiple websites that were used in different kind of countries, and they wanted to have something that would replace all of them, and that they could just use the same kind of technique and everything behind it for the multiple countries, even if the look and feel would be a little bit different. And in this situation, it's also important to know that although we were working in sprints and we were releasing, it was never a release that went really live. So that the next sprint, we were going to set the first website live with this framework. And so the team at that time felt really unhappy about the quality, but there was a lot of pressure, like there was always pressure for it. But this is the situation. Maybe extra interesting to know is I wasn't there for that whole team when they started. I typically would have done it a little bit different, but that's a whole different kind of discussion. I think I was about there a few months just before that. And everybody was putting a lot of pressure on me. Let's not have the retrospective because we want to keep working. And I thought, well, maybe, but let's focus a little bit on team unhappy about quality. And what does that really mean? And so one of the issues they talked about, and that I heard regularly, is that the front page calls some kind of services, web services, that should always work. And the developers were told, don't worry, it will always work. But of course, from time to time, these services return a null value. For whatever reason. And then the front page crashes, which is not good. And actually, a lot of pages were crashing, but on the front page, that was really a big issue. And the management and other people were saying, yeah, but on the testing environment, this is less stable environment. And even the environment where you put it live, we didn't put that much memory because right now it's not really live and things like that. So when we will have more, when we are really live, you will notice that you won't have that problem. But the team didn't really trust that. So they stayed unhappy about the quality. And so a second part about being unhappy about that quality is that the team complains they don't get time to fix this, a typical thing that you sometimes hear in teams. And actually, they were complaining about this all the time for months. So that took really, and I want to stress out the 4 months part, because if you look back at what does that mean, 4 months? So imagine how many times were they actually spent on discussing this. Would fixing have taken more or less time than the discussing? Well, I want to find out. And I thought about a kind of retrospective where we could find this out. And I was just talking, I just gave you one example. There's a few other things as well. But that's basically a little bit what I wanted to do. I wanted to have to do what I called at that time a work retrospective. The team was already looking a little bit like, oh, what do you want to do? This is normally a retrospective is just talking and not doing. And I say, well, no. A work retrospective for me, no talking. We will be programming, or you will be programming during 1 hour. And after that hour, you need to commit or you need to upload it, whatever. I don't remember what source control system they had. But basically, after that 1 hour, you have to commit it, and that's it. So they liked that idea and said, okay, tell us some more. So what are the details of how that work retrospective would work? So I would still do what Diana and Esther call set the stage. We'll still do some check-in so that people can talk a little bit about, okay, how they're feeling. So that was important for me because we had people from multiple countries that didn't see each other very often. So for me, it was important that we still had that little time, 10 to 15 minutes maximum, to do some kind of second stage. After that, there is what they call a gather data phase, and this basically was for me. I asked everybody to write down 1 or 2 actions, and the maximum time that they got was 5 minutes. I think it was more like 3 minutes, so that everybody could write down 1 or 2 actions, things that they said we never get time for it, but I really think we should do that. And then in a round robin, everybody presented one ID. And when we did the full round, then the people could present their second ID. I think 1 or 2 had 2 IDs, but most just had 1 ID that they really wanted to work on. And then the next part was you have to select a partner. Could be anything. And with your partner, you select an ID. And then you get to work on it. Just do it. You get 1 hour. You have to work on this, and like I said, you need to commit at the end. And when that's done, we'll do a mini demo. So that is basically what a work retrospective is all about. So let's see a little bit what the experience was. How did that work for that team? So remember that failing front page I talked about a few minutes ago? It turns out there were about 60, more or less 60 calls to web services. And the problem with the problem with these web services is that the way they were called was just, yeah, we know that there's always going to work, so we just call them. And of course, that's not good. It could be return a null object, like I said. So what they wanted to do was just a very easy, simple fix, not a good fix or a perfect fix, but just do a little wrapper around it. Do I get a null value back? No. Okay. Yes. Then I ignore it. No. Then we continue. Something like that. And in less than 1 hour, they fixed 40 of them. And so basically, the website became like 40% or 40 of 60. So that's 2/3 more stable because of that. What I also know is that the next day, these two people fixed all the rest of these 40, and in the next week, I think they even fixed some of the other pages that they did. Did that help? Yes, because especially with the front page, it's much better to have a front page that shows partially of the data, and the main of these things kept working. The extra thing, because of the logging, now they could figure out what web service was giving a problem. They fixed that then a few times later, but they actually solved that already. And that's just two people who worked on it for an hour, and there were actually a lot more people. So it's work and it costs time, but the tester told me next week that because of that, he won more than 1 hour in that next week. And so if you know that we do 2-week sprints at that time, so that 1 hour that was invested by two people was already won back the next sprint. So in that sense, that was also good. But that's just looking at one example. So I want to go back a little bit, experience what's the rest of the experience. Well, some people were not ready to, and so they wanted to keep working during the demos. Like I said, mini demos, so people just showed a little bit, talked a little bit about it, but I told them immediately, no, you cannot do. If you're not finished after the hour, you don't get a demo. I did this on purpose because for me, it was also important to kind of teach them about, okay, we want to work in very small steps. You knew that you had a deadline of 1 hour, and I wanted to have them check in or commit multiple times. For example, these people who worked on that front page bug, they committed like 40 times. Every time they fixed one of these things, they committed, and then they went back. So that's why they knew at any time, okay, if the hour is gone, we have already fixed this many things. What was interesting is I've done this multiple times, and in some of these cases, secret projects come out. You know, these kind of projects that people already work on below and that nobody is supposed to know, typically about fixing quality or something else. In two of the cases that I've done these, people presented this secret project as if they'd done it in 1 hour. That was not the goal, but I didn't say much about it because I was happy that now such a secret project came out. So for me, that was like, it's okay. What is really important for me, that it was not treated as a competition. I didn't tell to the people who were not able to do it, that's bad, because I also know that some of them still committed or they kept working the rest of the day, whatever. So the quality improved a lot. And at the same time, the morale went up a lot. Because one of the things that they learned a lot is that actually, instead of complaining, we can actually do something. And sometimes it's a lot better to just do something than complaining and talking all the time. Voila, that's all.
Thank you so much, Yves. That was so inspirational. I'm definitely going to demand that people in my teams I work with watch this video, and hopefully some of them gets inspired. Talking about inspiration, I have a few questions. And the first one is about what inspired you in the first place? How did you come up with this format?
I think was more the energy that was in the team. Like we don't want to do normal retrospective, and we never get time. And at the same time, my stubbornness, like, yeah, but we always need to do a retro. So I was thinking, how can I mix these two problems together and make a third idea of that? And I think that's how I don't remember when I got the idea. I know I got it before we did the retro because I talked with a few people during that day, but it was on the same day that we did it. That I remember. It might have been during lunch break that I said, okay, but then I have another idea. Yeah, I don't know. I sometimes have crazy ideas. Maybe I haven't slept much that day, and then I came up with something like that. I don't drink alcohol, so it's not coming from that. That I do know.
Thank you. What you've done this several times, you said, but what are the typical reactions? So what? No talking? We're gonna work?
Yeah, there's multiple things there. First of all, well, part of it they like it. Oh, we can code again. The other part is, wait a minute, why do you still want to do retro then? And what is different than just working? But and so it takes sometimes to convince them, some convincing. That's what I was looking for. But I think in general, and for these kind of things, but for me in most retros, I'm okay that not everybody joins. I'm more like what's the sentence I like to say is that I prefer heads that count than counting heads. So I don't care if not everybody is there, but the people who are there that they engage, and so they don't have to be there. But especially because it's because it's a special format. People kind of like, okay, I want to see what this crazy thing is that Yves cooked up now again, and so they join. The hardest part is, like I said, you have to finish in 1 hour, because there's still lots of developers who think like, this is impossible, I cannot do this. But the fact that they can do something about their typical thing that they're complaining about, they also like. It's also putting them on their responsibility, of course. They don't always realize that, and sometimes afterwards they feel tricked. But yeah, this is, you say that you cannot do this, now you can do this. And I see a lot more responsibility after that in most of the teams. Maybe not immediately, but I do a lot of, I didn't talk about that, but typically I do a lot of personal coaching afterwards. For example, with the people who didn't finish in the first thing. Sometimes even the best developers are not able to finish in 1 hour, and then some people who just left school are able to do that, and they feel like annoyed about that. So that gives some other extra opportunities for some coaching. So yeah, that's it's interesting, I find.
Yeah, really. I'm looking at my sheet here. Next question. So my head got spinning. So I'm thinking this is a great way to sneak in the idea of having hack weeks and hack days, kind of extending this from a retro 1-2 hours to a full day maybe. But let's pretend that we're doing hack days or hack weeks.
Well, it's really good that you think about that, because I never made the connection between these two. And maybe there got where my inspiration got from. That maybe that was from, because I know that I've been to hackathons even before that, but we never did that at that company. So I assume that when we do hack weeks, then that would be less needed, because then they would already work on the things they like. So it feels a little bit like a mix of these kind of things. But sometimes hack weeks are sometimes looking in companies as too much the fun thing. Oh, let's do something completely different. And what I really like about this part is about solving your technical debt and taking the responsibility to solve an actual problem. The one from the web services is for me the most remarkable, because it was a really big issue that nobody took care of, or at least the product owner and the managers didn't realize. Also because we didn't have any logging, and because of this we had much more logging now, or that they added the logging later, and then they took this much more seriously. So that helped in the other sense as well. But this is really about making the product much more stable. in whatever way you want. There was also somebody who just fixed a stupid, the typical kind of thing is a copyright thing or something, or a very strange thing in a contact form or something. Yeah, something stupid that nobody cares about, that is not important, but sometimes I don't know if you heard the story lately. I heard the story last week or 2 weeks ago about somebody who applied to a job for a company. He worked on the first day, he fixed the stupid bug, and then he resigned. And I liked it so much because he was so fed up with the bug that he took the whole process to get hired. So that's probably a few weeks or months, I don't know, just to fix that bug. And then he said, "Okay, this is what I came here for. Bye, I'm gone." And
hope
it's
that
a little
story is
bit,
true.
yeah, I don't know if it's true, and but it's one of these stories that I can imagine that you're so fed up with a certain bug, and this is my way of doing it in a company with the people who are there. And it gives, like you say, you see the energy I have talking about it, but this is really the energy that these people gave me when they worked with it, and that's the nice thing. It's about listening to the people and what are your problems, and then giving them some space to work on it. So yeah.
That sounded like good advice. Do you have? Let's pretend I'm inspired. I want to do this with my team next week. Is it just go at it, or do you have any additional advice?
Yeah, well, I originally wrote a blog post about it, so I'll give you that link. But for me, most of it is yes. I think everything, yeah, probably here then, right? It's this is the thing that that I think everything that you need to know is there. And I would actually say the opposite. Please, if you try it out, contact me at any time. Ask me questions if you want to know more, or just give me feedback why it works or doesn't work for you. Because I'm really, would like to know what other people are doing with it. I know a few coaches who tried it out and were really happy with that. So so far, I haven't met anyone who said it completely blew up in my face. So
thank you,
but I'm
Yves,
happy
for
to
taking the time
You're
to both
welcome.
do the talk and for this Q&A.
It's always nice to talk with you, Jimmy. I remember, when was it 2013 the first time? That's already 8 years ago. It's insane. But it always gives me energy to talk with you, like with so many people in the community. And I feel we have so many connections and war stories to exchange. So that's why I like the Agile with Jimmy so much. This is really about sharing. Yeah, it's sharing war stories, but for me the positive thing, like that's why this is not just the complaining part. This is about, okay, this is something you can do with a team. You can actually do something with a team in a moment that they might not be interested in retros, because we all know every team is bored about retrospective at some point in time, and then you look for other ideas, and sometimes we try to add so much fun to it, but then it looks like, okay, but are we actually helping? Because it's good to have fun retrospectives, but if they don't bring any actions, like you said in the beginning, what's the use of that? Then you maybe just go out and do something else. And for me, retros is serious work. It's really about improving. And it's like Diana and Esther said, it about issues with the team, but this is a team that has some issues, some real impediments that they want to work on. And voilà.
A great wrap up. Once again, thank you and take care. Until we meet again.
Until we meet again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. What did you make of the work retrospective? Will you try it? Have you tried it? Please share your opinion and experience in the comments below. If you want to support my work of creating free educational videos here on YouTube, like this one and these ones, please consider becoming a Patreon. Until next time, explore, have fun, and be safe.